Well, our speaker this afternoon is a very well-known and a very enthusiastic member of the Royal and of the Philatelic and Postal History World of India. Markand should be well known to most of you. He's always coming up with new ideas to promote the hobby. He's a regular international exhibitor and a meticulous researcher, and you'll find that out in the next few minutes. So, Markand, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. So, good afternoon, everybody in England, and good evening in India, and wherever you are in the world. Today, we are going to talk about the 1929 airmail stamps of India. And what you will see in this presentation today, very simple, the artist's sketches, the basic elements of the stamp design, the postal notices and the circulars, what they have issued, the first take hours of 4th November and 20th December, and techniques that how to identify the position without a complete sheet, and some of my favorite errors and the position on the sheet. Now here on this sheet, we have the big item of the artist sketch. We had the drawing competition for the 1929 airmail stamps of India in 1928. And total 77 participants have participated. However, you will see 75 on the list, as number 10 has A and B with the 3 entries, 10, 10A and 10B. This is the entry which you are seeing in the center, was submitted by T. Archer, and he was working in the security printing press at Nasik. He was one of the chief engraver of the stamps. The very first entry was submitted by the well-known Indian aerophilatelist Stephen Smith on 3rd of August 1928. Here we will see that how the stamp was designed. When they announced the drawing competition, they said that there should be some of the airmail content. So they had the aircraft, obviously King George V, because at that time he was the Emperor of India, and they have taken the design of this Vihad Lake, which was near Bombay. Now, this information, what you are seeing on the screen, has been gathered by me from the National Archive from New Delhi. During the process of the printing of the stamp, once upon a time, there was a question arise that from where the King George V's portrait has been derived. And in one of the correspondence, they responded that it is derived from the present 5 rupees banknote. And the background, what we will see in the stamp design, that is a lake that was also in the question. And they said that this is the lake near Bombay. And here is the postcard of the Vihad Lake, in which we see the lake, the mountains and the palm trees. And the aeroplane, obviously, the De Havilland Hercules DH-66. Now, this is the very first entry of the drawing competition submitted by Mr. Stephen Smith. On the bottom right, you will see F.A.Y., Fay, and that's the nom de plume of Mr. Smith. Fay Harcourt was the name of Stephen's wife, and that is the reason he chosen this nom de plume for his entry. Now, when this particular drawing was offered to me and I was thinking of to add it in my collection, I rejected initially, considering it as a Cinderella. But when I come across with the National Archive and I came to know that the nom de plume of Stephen's entry was Fay, and then I realized that this particular drawing has the Fay word on the bottom right corner, then I realized what exactly it is. And furthermore, I gathered this information from the Museum of Communication in Switzerland, Bern, where Stephen has sent a letter to Dr. Robert Paganini, who was a very dear friend of Stephen Smith, and also a well-known aerophilatelist in that time. And he was constantly in touch with Stephen Smith regarding all the aero activities, whatever Mr. Smith was doing in India, with pigeon mail, rocket mail, and obviously air mail. So here he sent one of the photographs of his design to Mr. Robert Paganini in Switzerland, and the bottom left, he made a little note that my nom de plume is fake. This is on the right bottom corner of each photographs. So he sent some photographs to Robert Paganini, and that's how I concluded the drawing, which we have seen earlier, that belongs to Mr. Stephen Smith. Now, here are the 5 entries submitted by the designer who was in security printing press at Nasik. So you will see on the bottom 2 designs that compared to the top one, okay, the one on the top left and the one on the top right, that the gateway of India was then later also replaced by the Indian map. Not only the Indian map, it was an attempt to show the airmail route with highlighting the names of the cities inside it. And this is what we have just discussed. And in one of the paragraphs of the correspondence, when the question was asked, they replied to the financial department in London that the landscape inserted in the design is actually a reproduction of one of the lakes near Mumbai. And now we can compare the photograph and the crop image of the photograph with these hills and the lake, and the palm trees looks almost similar. Okay, now as we discussed, total 77 entries were submitted, first by Stephen Smith, who lost. Ultimately, Mr. Grant was the winner with his entry number 38. However, Mr. Grant has also submitted another entry number 66, and his nom de plume was best try, but the best try didn't work. However, the luck at last worked. The entry number 38 and its nom de plume was luck at last. How nice and funny and interesting this story is. So here is the design, and which won the competition. And this is serial number 38 in the competition, submitted by Mr. Grant. And he is writing here just above this stamp, which is pasted on this pencil drawing. Mr. Grant is writing, "This is my original rough sketch." Later on, he presented this sketch to Mr. Smith. So on the right side, you can see the crop image of the reverse of this drawing, which was acknowledged by Mr. Smith on 9th December 1929. And now we will come to the postal notices, some more technical things. And it's a very interesting story that they issued total 3 postal notices, also one circular in between. And because the release of the stamp was getting delayed and delayed. And that's how it becomes interesting. So the first postal notice they issued on the 5th September 1929, saying that the stamps will release on 1st of October. But then on 20th September, they come up with another notice and said that now instead of the 1st October, the stamp will be released on 1st November. They also released one circular after the second postal notice with a little bit more clarification, where they have clearly mentioned that these stamps will not be recognized in payment of postal charges for the transmission of articles by routes other than by air. So these stamps were exclusive for only airmail, and airmail. Finally, after the 2 unsuccessful attempts, Mr. Rogers came with the 3rd and final notice on 1st of October that the stamps will be available from 4th November. Do remember they issued 3, 4, 6, 8 and 12 annas and not the 2 annas, and which you will see here. So the finally stamps were released, and here we have all the 5 stamps with the sign of the designer in the salvage area. And here we have the first day cover of those 5 stamps released on 4th November 1929. Interestingly, this cover is addressed to Gertrude Collins, sent by Stephen Smith, and later Stephen fired a rocket mail in name of Gertrude Collins, because Gertrude Collins was also a well-known airmail collector, and this was happened on 26th of June 1938 when Stephen fired a rocket. On the reverse of the cover, here you will see that this cover is also signed by the designer of the stamp, Mr. Grant. Now we come to the 2 annas, and 2 annas was the rate for the domestic airmail. So the mails which will be transmitted within India, and this will be treated with the 2 annas postal rate. And here we have the circular that the 2 annas stamp will be released on 20th of December. Okay, so 4th November 1929, the 5 stamps, and on 20th December, we had the 2 annas. Again, a beautiful first day cover with signature of the designer, Mr. Grant, on the top, and the date 20th December 1929, addressed to Stephen Smith. Okay, I had also published a book jointly with my father and my sister, which is in Royal Library at the moment, and I printed 1,000 copies in year 2015, all sold in 1 year, 225 errors listed. Here are the statistics. And then I was continuously researching that the errors what I have discovered, can I find a multiple block to prove it that it is constant and this is the position, which we will see now here, that in absence of the complete sheet, because I tried my best to find out that if I can find some of the complete sheets of any of the values, but unfortunately, I'm searching it for last 15 years and I haven't seen a single sheet so far. So this is just a digital reproduction that if the sheet is available, then how it will look like. The printing format was 12 into 12, total 144 stamps. And on the right side, we have 2 guide marks. On the left side of the sheet, we have 2 more guide marks in the margin area. And what are the guide marks and how they look like? They look like this. Now, the important thing, when I have studied these guide marks, that the one which is on the row 6, which is coming from the top side, it is falling on the top position in the margin area, and which is on the bottom side, I mean on the row 7th, it is on the bottom side within the margin area. So even with having just 1 stamp, you can say that on which particular position it falls. This is the guide mark on the left side of the sheet, and we will see some more example to understand it even better. So now here on the top left, we have this guide mark, but it is on the bottom side of the stamp. So obviously that is falling on row 7, and we can see it's a column number 1. Here on the bottom block, which is falling on the top side in the margin area, it means it's row 6. Again, here on the right side, that is row 6, and the big block on the extreme right can help us that how exactly the situation is, that why it is row 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it is falling on the top side of the stamp within the margin area, and that is row 6. Now, here it's very clear, row 6 and row 7, you can clearly see that the one falling on row 6 is on the top side in the margin area, and the one on the bottom is on row 7. And it's same on every single value, whether it is 3 annas, 2 annas, 4, 6, 8, or 12 annas. And we have another block of the 4 anna on the right side for further clarification. Okay, interestingly, a part of the set 2, 3, 4, and 6 annas was overprinted with Kuwait, and a supply was sent. Very little amount of seats were overprinted. In 2 annas, we had 73, 3 annas, 334, 4 annas, only 23 seats. And for the 6 annas, we don't have the number exactly, but this set was overprinted. Part of the set, was overprinted with Kuwait, because the Kuwait post office was under the control of the Bombay GPO. After the partition, it was being administered by Pakistan. Here we have on the top thing, we have the 3 listed varieties in the Stanley Gibbons catalog. One, which is the Q, okay, in the postage, O becomes Q. The second one is the treetop missing variety, which is a very popular one. And the third one is the reverse serif. Apart from these 3 varieties, when I published the book, Stanley Gibbons took a serious note of it. And I was fortunate that they included this 2, in fact 4, and I will tell you why there are 4 varieties in their book. So the first varieties they have included, that is the second eye of India, looks like a numeral 1, and which is they have listed as SG221B, and that also exists with the Kuwait overprint, so that is why it's 2. Okay, here. And the arc variety, which is passing all the way from the bottom, where the T of the postage, and going all the way top and crossing L of mail and passing through all the way to the stamp. And that also with the Kuwait overprint, and that's how it makes 4. Now we will see here that without the guide mark, even with the help of the margin area, okay, how I have identified the position. So this is the type 23 in my book. And when I discovered this block, I realized that it is falling on the row 1 and column 1. There is a pulse flow above the A of IR, breaking all the diagonal bars, and above the tail of the aeroplane. And here above the numeral 2, the frame lines are broken. On the right block, we have the type 73, which is falling on the row 10 and column 11. There are 3 horizontal frames are broken in between P and O of postage. Interestingly and luckily, I have Michael Seffi here today, and I have noticed this variety, the numeral 1 variety, in the Royal Collection when I met Michael on 1st November 2013 to see the Royal Collection. I was actually there to see that and study the 2 annas, because I was studying the 1 anna watermark at that time. And Michael was very kind, and he asked me that if I want to see anything else. And then I said, obviously, I like this 1929 airmail stamps, and I would like to study it. And I have noticed that there is 1 example is there in the Royal Collection. Obviously, the collection belongs to our beloved patron at that time, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And here we have the picture. Now, this variety, the numeral 1 variety, okay, this block proves the position. The left side block, if we see it on the top right, we have this numeral 1 variety. So that is on the row 1 and column 12. So the position is confirmed, and it is, I have supplied the data to Stanley Gibbons also, and they have mentioned it in their catalog. Now, some puzzles which inspires me and which keeps me going on is like this, the block in the center. We have this extra spoke variety, okay, which is not recorded yet in my book. I have found it on nearly 8 to 9 examples with and without Kuwait overprint altogether, but I'm not able to reach to the conclusion to find out the column, because I have this just bottom marginal block. So I know it is happening on the row 12, but which column, that I don't know yet. On the extreme right side, we have this nice block of 8, which clearly confirms the position of my type 12, which is falling on the row 3 and column 2. And this variety, since it is on the basic stamp, it exists with and without Kuwait overprint both. Now, another thing. This is the type 2 in my book, which is falling on the row 12 and column 4. One more variety apart from the Q variety, which is a little pearl flow on the R of air. Now the Q variety, this one, the Q variety was listed under India section only and not under the Kuwait section. I was curious that if the error is occurred on the basic stem, and why doesn't it is there in the Kuwait section until and unless the particular sheet is not overprinted with Kuwait and supply was sent. I was curious, and I was fortunate to acquire this block, which proves that it also exists in Kuwait. I sent again the information to Stanley Gibbons, and now it is there in the catalog. So this is one of the discovery. Now, since the mint example exists, I was curious that there should be used and also possibly a cover. And I was fortunate to acquire this cover with Q variety, overprinted with Kuwait, okay, going to United States of America. I'm sure you cannot see the Q variety nicely. So what I did is I put some LED light on the within the cover, putting it in, and try to click a picture using my mobile. And here you can see the Q variety. The next one is about the forgeries of the overprint, because the 4 annas printed in a very lower quantity sometimes, however, even the forgeries are rare, but sometimes you come across with the forgery. Now, to identify the forgery, usually they are not dark black. The overprint pattern is rough and in bold text with a grayish black little overprint type. The genuine one, which is underneath, an example with a sharp and proper black, clear black overprint. This one. Okay. Now, another interesting thing. Both of the stamp on the part of the cover are with double impression. This is listed under the Kuwait section of Stanley Gibbons, and I was fortunate to acquire this from eBay, this nice piece. Both of the stamps are printed double and on part cover. The top stamp, which is this one, also in the enlarged image, it also has the type 38 from my book, that the frames, the frame bars are broken on the bottom left underneath the floral ornament, and that is falling on the row 8 and column 4. This is the position of that particular error. But however, here we have the double impression variety, which is the extra bonanza. Now it's completely other way around. What we discussed about the Q variety, okay, since it was under India section and not in Kuwait, here I was thinking that if the double impression variety, the basic stamp is printed double, and that was listed under Kuwait only, why not under India? And it gave me more energy to searching it. And finally, I was lucky to acquire this example from one of the auction house in Britain. And this is listed in my book as type 45, the basic stamp printed double without the Kuwait overprint. I have sent the information to Stanley Gibbons, but I think they have not included it yet in the catalog. Now we will talk about the 4 annas. The other values apart from the 4 annas has the shades, but lighter and darker and not distinctive like 4 annas. All other values. 4 annas has the multiple colors, nearly 5 to 6. And if I want to clarify that how distinctive the shades are, that in some of the time the changes in the shades of the 4 annas are remarkable, as they appear to sometime if the 4 annas printed in the shade of 6 annas. But altogether there is a good shade range variety in 4 annas. That's what I have noticed. We will again see some of my favorite varieties. This is type 12, frame broken, the letter bar actually underneath the O and S of the postage, and that is falling on the row 12 and column 1. Now you can, this marginal block helps me that this is the column 1 and row 12 because it is the bottom left side. This is the bottom right side of the block, the large pearl flow variety above the first eye of India, and that is type 28 from my book, and that is falling on the row 11 and column 12. Now we have seen this arc variety earlier. So when I discovered this variety, I was under impression that it is just a one variety. But one day I purchased this big block and I noticed that it has the arc variety. So I was able to find out and locate the position. Not only the position, when during my careful study, I realized that this arc is not just on this one stamp, and it is passing through all the way and touching the bottom part of the upper stamp as well, and touching the top part of the lower stamp as well. So altogether, there are 3 varieties. And now, since if the one variety is, we have identified the position, all of the 3 varieties are obviously constant. And with the position, later I discovered those varieties as well in the single example as well as on cover. Here we go to 8 annas and type 1 from my book, a very nice flaw on the bottom loop of 8, and that is again constant. This bottom corner marginal block proves the position row 12 and column 1. Now the treetop missing variety, which I am showing on the right side, interestingly, whenever you will come across of the treetop missing variety in format of the vertical pair, do carefully study the bottom stamp. It also has a little dash in between I and L of male. And that is, if the treetop is constant, this is also constant. I have studied nearly 16 pairs and every single pair has this variety. Okay, now we will talk about the 12 annas, and here we will discuss type 25, type 28 and type 26. The type 25, there are pearls between the A of last letter of India A and the first letter of postage P. Okay, that is type 25. The broken lines behind King's portrait, that is type 28, and a plate scratch on the center of the floral ornament, that is type 26. So I had all these singles and multiples, nearly 7-8 example of each. When I discovered this block, it exploded that where exactly the position of those errors are falling. This is a bottom left marginal block, and this is the first column, this is the second column, and all of these varieties are falling on third column. The top one is falling on the row 9, row 10, and the type 26 is falling on the row 12. Okay, in the same design of this airmail stamp, we had the postal stationery. Okay, and I was obviously curious to study the varieties in the stationery as well. And this is the only one variety I was able to find, and which is constant. I have nearly seen 50 plus examples. The dot between A and I of the air, letter air. Okay, now here I am showing two versions, one with the 8 annas on the right side, and later on the rate was reduced to 7.5 annas. So the variety appears there as well. And here we will see the first day cover, and again with the variety. The first day usage of the 8 annas postal stationery was 1st May 1930. We also had the postcard. This one, the 4 annas postcard, which is the world's first airmail stationery postcard. However, I'm not able to find any errors in this postcard, but here we will see the first day usage of the world's first airmail stationery postcard when it was sent from Bombay. By mistake, they put the insufficiently paid for transmission by airmail marking, but when they realized that this is the new reduced rates postcard, they removed it and struck it out with the blue crayon and finally decided that this postcard is good to go. And this is the last and the latest known usage to me, obviously, from Kuwait. Interestingly, without the Kuwait overprint, because here we have the full set, and which is giving us an impression that this may be a philatelic cover. However, it is not. Why? Because it has the correct postage rate, 3.5 annas for the surface, 29 annas for the air fee, 3 annas for the registration fee, total 35 annas, and plus the King George VI half anna, which you can see on the reverse of the cover, along with the Sykes label. And as I mentioned earlier about the Kuwait post office, that it was being administered by the Bombay GPO, okay, until the partition, when India became independent in August, then it started being administered by the Pakistan. What you have seen in this presentation is exactly, I'm showing you what you will see in this presentation today in the beginning. And these are the things we have seen in this presentation today. And this is for those who will be watching the recording in the YouTube and still have questions, because today you guys have an opportunity to put it in the chat box. But if somebody is seeing it later, they can scan the QR code and reach to me and ask about any clarification they are looking for. Thank you very much indeed to everybody. And Mark, over to you now.
Thank you, Markand. And that was a really very interesting explanation of all those stamps. And the good news is that we've got one sort of question stroke comment that's come in. Actually, a couple, to be fair, a couple of questions from the same person. This is from Dr. Clifford Williams, who I don't know. I mean, Clifford and I were exchanging chat. We're not quite sure whether he's got the latest catalogue, but he says that the Stanley Gibbons catalogue gives the release date of these stamps as the 22nd of October 1929. And so he says, should that be corrected to the 4th of November?
He is right. See, I discussed this with you, Jeffries, many times, that we have all this data, and I have shown him all this information, including the postal notices in the first day cover as an evidence. But for some reason, it's coming all the way from the old days, and they are not changing it. It's as simple as that. But I know this mistake in Gibbons' catalog.
Okay, thank you. Clifford also was, he noted that the name of the designer in the catalogue is shown as R grant. That should be G grant, shouldn't it?
G grant. Yeah. Again, he is right. Yeah. Again, he is right. It's R grant in Gibbons catalog. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. And thank you, Clifford, for your questions. They do help clarify the situation there. No one else has asked any questions. So this must mean that your explanation has left everybody very clear on matters relating to these stamps. And that being the case, Mike, I think it's fair to say that we've finished the questions. I'd like to hand back to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think everybody will agree that Markand's got a great command of his computer software. Judging with all the colours and arrows and everything that you've used, it's very good, thank you. Anyway, you've taken us through the design process, the birth of the stamp, the story of the late design, the postal notices, which has obviously come back to haunt Stanley Gibbons, the printing format, the reasons for the Kuwait overprint, and the usages. But, and it's big but, isn't it? Most of all, you've spent an enormous amount of time reconstructing blocks and sheets and looking for all the small varieties that you can possibly imagine. And you've illustrated them really well so we can see where they arise. And for all that, thank you very much indeed. So we've all learned quite a bit. So Markand, thank you very much indeed for this afternoon's lecture. I'd now like to hand over to our president, Peter Coburn, who I think would like to present you with something and maybe have a few words of his own.
Thank you. I don't know what's happened to my picture. My name is clear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Peter, we can hear you.
I don't know what's happened to my video because I switch it on or off and it doesn't seem to make any difference. So we clearly have a small issue there, but I can assure you it's me and not an AI machine. Markand, I've enjoyed your show very much indeed. It's the enthusiasm which you show, which is so impressive. And they're very beautiful stamps. You've brought them to life. You've given us information about so many aspects of them. And you've actually shown that, fly-spec philately can be really exciting. Providing, of course, that you have somebody with the artistic merit that you have, which enables you to show what's going on. And I think that's wonderful. Really interesting indeed. I love the idea that it's the first airmail postcard ever produced. I thought that was a really fascinating piece of news to me. So anyway, Markand, thank you very much indeed. It's almost Indian summer here at the moment. It's 21 degrees here and the sun is shining in. So thank you for spending time. I expect it's very dark where you are, but it's wonderful here and it's been a great joy for all of us. So I'd like to present you with a certificate, which I think Mark has in hand. And what is more, it's going to be, I hope, video possible. Here we are. There it is. Wonderful. So Markand, I present you with this certificate of appreciation and thank you indeed, very much indeed, for myself and on behalf of everybody on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you, Peter, for that. I don't know whether there'll be any more informal questions, if I can put it like that, but I've no doubt we'll keep everything rolling for a bit. So I can say that is the end of the formal proceedings, but people continue to talk amongst themselves or ask informal questions to you, Markand. That is it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.